Make template. Wait, why didn't it work? I don't want to fucking search. I want to create. Okay. How do you just write names? I have to add images? Let me just end stream and restart. What the fuck is this? I guess that's nothing. Either way, we'll just study right now. I want to make a tier list, but I feel like this is just cooked. I mean, add text here, but how do I add? So I need to like pre-do this. So I can't do it right now. Correct. Because my idea was I'm just gonna write names, but it's all right. Loki, I wanted to look at yesterday if we can fold like the theory of the spot 150 deep. I guess he didn't go to that size quite, so it makes the line weird. Was it like this? Honestly, this will even the SPR if we do this. It obviously makes the hand play out a little differently. Yeah, you jam queens here without. You want the backdoor flush draw suit. It seems to jam. It's quite odd, right? Because you would think the backdoor flush draw suit. You like to check when you block the queen jack combos. When you don't block the queen jack combos, you want to jam. I'm assuming this is because queen jack doesn't reopen. Oh, he doesn't even have queen jack. So he has less combos of ace queen. But ace queen's not really a bluffing hand. So is this some of the theory? Because this seems to be the only hand it interacts with. Obviously, there's some king queen, but king queen's actually reopening. It seems to only matter for ace queen. There's no other queen villain has. He has his own queens that doesn't really change much. So you fast play when they have less ace queen. I guess it's a slight EV win when they fold ace queen. In the check line, I guess ace queen is drawing to 3 cards versus you and could bluff you. I don't really know. You don't want to go check versus ace queen. That's what it seems like. When we check, he rips it in. Queen's is a pure call, obviously, because he's supposed to be. I don't know. There's a 4-bet pot. 150 bigs deep. But obviously we didn't go to this size, but we ran into aces here when he jammed. Obviously the theory of the spot is weird, because I just don't expect him to have these hands as much as he does. Okay. Loki, yeah, there's got to be an easier way to do this tier list maker thing. Maybe I'll do it off stream. Like, I don't want to do images. I want to just write text. Because, like, yeah, it's just not going to be doable tonight if that's the case. Because I just wanted to write down the rigs names. Unfortunate. Unfortunate. I'll announce that I'm live, actually. Let me fix my mic. Okay. Let's look at other spots aside. I'll do hand histories if you guys want to do them. I went live mainly with the intent to do the thing. What am I? Okay, I can't be saying that, but like I went live to do the study stream thing. It's crazy. Oh, I actually want to look at like how we're supposed to play versus like small raised spots, and also how to just play flop. These spots are probably one of the most important spots you can study in all of poker, so pretty important to make sure you're playing them right. They're more important than any big spot. Most common spot and one of the most in the entire game. You don't like to see it too much, and knowledge maxing today. Yeah. We'll study two things. We'll A, look at the optimal strategy, which is actually just reopening 50%. And what is the reason for this, and like not assuming it's a range bets. Top pair, small blind does have more. Obviously you have an aces advantage and you have like a stronger equity advantage. I think it's somewhat due to A, the value of position. This is the issue you come into. And what we'll look at is the defense strategy. Small raise, folding 28%. Not folding anything with the club. And this is why range bet can overperform, because people will lower players might not find, they might autopilot find these defense. But I find the defense is pretty intuitive. People actually have started. Now, if we play range B33, up the small, what's the counter strategy? Your mic is really quiet. Okay, is this better? Raising a lot more for a bigger sizing. It doesn't really change much. You do defend some of this ace high. Doesn't mean you defend this shit. And you do defend the backdoor flush draw hands somewhat. Not this trash though. You want the more connected stuff. And I'm blocking more folds. So that's why you don't like 8 high as much. You don't even like you obviously, yeah, 8-5 you don't like as much as 7-5. I guess that's part of the reason. Your opponent from this range is, if you look at the small blind guys, huge difference here, right? Compared to this. This is just all trash in this texture. You want your opponent to have this shit. So I think it's an input volume issue, not the mic placement issue. Let me load up my stream and see what I sound like. Is it any different? Guys who normally watch, is it any different than usual? My mic is sometimes not the best. But I feel like I sound okay. Am I trolling? Yeah, so the 8x here is just not good as much. Oh my god, oh my god. I'm gonna check. You go up and you actually lose like 8 bigs. Okay, so the main hands that are bad here as bets is just the ace-x hands. The third checking EV is quite okay. So also 8s and 7s, not the best. Can you post it in the Discord? Because I can't see it. Are you in my Discord? If not, I'll add you instantly. Dope Waffles, appreciate you. Sorry, if the link's getting flagged, it's quicker to just do it this way. So yeah, like obviously, if your opponent's betting on these hands, you go from raising like 50%, not raising too much. Also, Queen 5, mixing. So I think what's gonna affect your guys' win rate more is actually how to punish the range bet. So we see the main hands that your opponent's not supposed to be betting are these underhands and these middling ace highs. It's not really about the bluffs. Like yeah, he might slightly be over bluffing, but that gets exploited by just calling. But the main edge is raising, it seems like, a little more aggressively. A with your value. And I'm assuming you have to 3-bet here. You're not 3-betting too much. So Queen 5 actually isn't a great 3-bet in practice. Just joined? Alright, let me add you. Sorry, my Discord's kind of like shit, but whatever. You can just post a link here in the general or something. I'll open it. King 10 goes into like a different equity bucket when it has a club. I believe that's the logic. Usually when you're putting more money in the flop, on the flop, you don't really care for blockers, you just care for higher equity. It's usually the way it works. And yeah, you raise some of these middling hands that can actually... Oh, 3-bets already some of these. Yeah, okay, you 3. This is a 3-betting slot. 9-7 is like borderline bluff hand. The start is hard to pilot. You obviously want to block the value, so you're going to take your middling 3x, especially 3x with the club. It's quite decent. How does this work? I do like the other tier list. It's a shame we can't get the image. It's such a weird tier list, though. What, I just text? Yeah, I can see. This is weird. Okay, we'll see. What the hell-y? Alright, whatever. We'll chill for a sec. It's a shame. I like the other one. I like the way it looks. It's just like shame it's only images. Maybe like I need someone to like go like scavenge and collect images of all the regs. Why is my mic like rubbing? It's quite frustrating actually. Alright, we'll do the classic thing. Let's look at the strong value hands. I actually want to just relearn the flop here. So this is just all the strong value hands that like to bet. You see, basically everything, you always, when you have a hand like this, you're betting 50%, 60% of the time. You'll see stuff like this, and basically the idea is you're betting a little bit more often with your strong hands. This is obviously the idea. The way it works is your middling king X, I guess, bets less with the backdoor flush draw, but you pretty much just mix 50%. The only hands that like really like betting, it seems like, is like kings, ace king mixes. King queen will bet a little more than ace king, it looks like. Screw EV, let's go strategy. Queen X out hearts, like anytime you have a heart kicker, you're gonna have a higher checking EV. If you were to compare the big difference here, it's not that this hand is higher equity than this hand is higher equity. Sorry, this hand is higher equity than this hand, but because this hand is the Queen of Hearts, its checking EV is higher relative to its betting EV compared to this hand. So it's not always like the strength of your hand. Obviously, it's just in the check line. When this goes check and your opponent has Queen Deuce of Hearts, it's less good than this hand. Even though like people will misunderstand the concept here. If you were to say, "Oh, I'm blocking more calls," then you're basically what you're really saying is this betting EV is higher. I mean, this hand's betting EV higher, which is clearly not the case. If you look, this hand's betting EV is actually not as high as this hand. So this hand actually is still a better hand to bet. It's just if you're balancing your range, this hand is a better check. because its checking EV is higher than this one. That's the idea. But like you said, like, it's so irrelevant to the point where you're mixing everything still, because you don't want to end up like a 2-blocker exploitable, which would mean if you never bet the Queen of Hearts because you stuck to this concept, in theory, your opponent every time you have the Queen of Hearts here could just like you never have King Queen in the check line, so you need to check other shits, and vice versa in the betting line. Your opponent would really not want to have the Queen of Hearts blocking your main King Queen. So you don't want to give too much EV. But if you in practice this stuff doesn't exist, so you can the way you would be able to exploit this is just actually just do the better action twice. This is what I do. As opposed to just mixing everything without rhyme or reason. You can usually capitalize off this EV because obviously what I just said is like almost impossible to execute upon. Because no one like how often do you even play the spot to like make an insane exploit? Let alone something this small. You would need like millions of hands in the exact spot almost to be able to get any sort of EV off something like this. So like that's why I like to like learn this lesson, and then I would rather just pure check this, pure open, pure open, pure open, pure open, pure check. You see, and then you're just gonna capitalize slightly more off the EV. Damn, Brockety was just ruled out for the game. No, he wasn't. Stop rage baiting me. Let's see this concept with King Jack here as well. This hand's checking EV is higher than this betting EV. So in theory, you would be able to gain like a big blind. Just the understanding your opponent's not going to be able to exploit you. But yeah. Obviously, like this is like the last thing you could think about, but I think it's relevant to understand the reason. And now when it gets middling, now you like checking the clubs. It just goes into a different hand archetype. Whereas King Queen is likely just bet. So it likes having future proof. But King 8's more like a bet. You can't go bet, so you'd rather just check with the stronger hands and bet the more middling ones, I think. I think that's the idea. Usually it just goes into a different equity buckets. This is around 80%. So you see these are still 80. So that's what's nice about this. This is still 80. These are 83, so it's a different equity buckets. You see these equities are extremely similar. They just have slightly different properties. Yeah, you studied a lot. Okay, anyway, the overall lesson here is you still just need to mix everything. And if you really want to simplify, just mix it 60%. Basically, as long as you know the spot's 50%, you can just be like, okay, I'm going to mix. You can slightly oversee bet, you can slightly under. If you know the frequency, just understand your strong value. And these like really, really wide range spots, the most important part is hitting the frequency. No blocker is going to matter that much, realistically. Okay, but now this is probably the more important part of the range to play, which is going to be these hands. Obviously, this hand's going to be betting under the frequency. We know the frequency is 50%. This is probably the main thing you can learn. And the reason why it's important, I think, to learn this is when you're playing Versit, you know the errors your opponent's going to make. For example, if I know my opponent's range betting, I know he's betting too much of these hands. I know he's betting too much of these hands, and I know he's betting too many ace highs. That's the main EV leak. The reason you check all these other hands is because you want to check eights. That's part of the EV. So as you go further down, you want to see bet more, but the reason you need the club here is you need the equity. Your hand is too low equity to just bet. You can. This is just exposed by the like. Even the funny part is just for coverage, fours actually still has a higher checking EV. It's just not as egregious as this hand in the betting line, which is just way worse. Like I said, you could just pure check these hands if you want. I find honestly people underrate how good checking on king high boards is and stuff and ace high boards. People are very passive. They do not like to bluff on the boards that are perceived your board. So realistically, like people underrate how often versus in lower stakes, like you can just realize with eights here. Like I think people feel like if they check, they're gonna get attacked, but most of the time, like people just don't really go for you in the checking line. And then the regs that do, they overdo it, and then you start pure checking your ace king. You can just start range checking almost and just absolutely screw them. So why is my draw not working? Ace 3 likes the EV from the ace of clubs. Ace 9 just mixes everything. Not much of a heuristic going on here. Seems like you just slightly want equity. Obviously, you want equity with queens because it's the wrong equity bucket. Yeah, it gets up to 76. It's also the ability to defend versus the raise on the flop is important. There's not much of a heuristic to grab to. You pretty much are mixing like all the stuff 50%, and then you're like really checking these lower hands aggressively. And the way it works is usually it goes low to high. So basically, there's no string now. Basically, tens to queens. I feel like you guys understand this concept, but basically the lower your hand is, it's like very similar hand class. Fives to, obviously when you get lower with fours, it slightly changes because your opponent actually has fives and sixes, like basically pure. But the lower you go, like especially with like tens to queens, you have a higher checking EV, but it's pretty much the same hand. Obviously you have slightly higher betting EV, but you're gonna have higher checking EV. So yeah. The idea is like if it goes check check and a jack or a 10, queen comes off. But when it goes check check with queens, the only real bad turn card is an ace. So like the cards that would fold, you don't benefit as much in the equity denial relative. That's kind of the idea. Like queens bets here to like fold out ace x, but tens, because it's not a 3-street hand, so it doesn't really matter. Same concept with the eights. Eights is not a great bet, but like fives benefits from folding out 8-7 offsuit. Or eights is 7. If your opponent is 7-6 here or 6-5, they're drawing dead, so you can just, it's easier to just check. Whereas you have like fives, slightly different. So if you were to like decide between the two, benefiting from equity denial is still is a factor. I don't think this hand's too interesting. We're betting 43%, so I was actually under. Okay, we'll go to the next thing. I like to look at flush draws here. And basically the idea is you always still like, it's the same as the strong value. You end up you bet your flush draws naturally more. Most textures. This one is just crazy. You just mix literally everything, except when you get to like the 3x, you bet a little less. Because it just will have higher checking EV. Because it can run check call. The way I like to think about these spots though, we'll see this when we get to the backdoor flush draws more, is it matters more on your opponent's reopening strategy. For example, if you have a hand like 10-7 here, and your opponent's playing like only like overbet reopen, well 10-7 is like, I guess it's okay versus it, but it's not the best. Or like 6-4. You see like maybe 6-4 likes betting a little more because it just doesn't like facing the bet as much. Ace queen, ace jack, these hands are like stronger value hands, so they're in a different class. But yeah, there's no real substance here. If you really want to be accurate, you just mix your perceived frequency based on just like it's gonna be slightly higher than your overall betting frequency in the spot. That's usually how I like to simplify it on these boards where there's like nothing to really grasp. And then there's straight draws, which are relevance. And same kind of concept, everything's betting. If I were to guess, I would imagine, oh, it doesn't like betting the double bad suit the same, but there's really nothing. You see, you just mix slightly up the frequency. There's really nothing to talk about. And, because you're betting for such a small size, if you're betting for a bigger size, there would be more blocker stuff going on. But when you're betting for a small size, you want to be balanced in almost every card. And this is like usually the best part of studying this way, is you actually get to see how to play your shit hands. And I think that's the part of poker where people struggle the most with, is how to play their shit hands. So yeah, the idea, if we actually were to look at 2-card backdoor flush draws, they bet a lot. They bet more than any hand class we've seen, right? The reason why is these hands struggle to defend. Right? Obviously you want to be balanced and have some like check folds in them. Like these hands are checking to check fold, and the main reason I think is just due to how much folds they block. And continues they don't block. They basically block a lot of the folding range. But the main reason, and then obviously in order to be balanced, you check your stronger ace high ones. But the reason you check your stronger ace highs is these are the only backdoor flush draw hands that can actually defend versus bet. Every other hand struggles to defend versus the bet here, so you're going to bet a lot of them. In fact, I think you could simplify to just pure betting these backdoor flush draw hands because they can't check call. They're not great check raises. These hands are fine check calls, which is why you will see them here. And obviously you have your like 9x hands, and king x, but that's the idea. Basically, these hands betting EV relative to checking EV is just way higher compared to any other. It bets more than like literally like the strong hands hand class. So yeah. And then now we'll just do this. We'll go to BFD 1 card. I think it's same type of heuristic. A hand like 10-8 here. It cannot check call, but it has some equity. Same with these middling ace highs. That's why you'll just bet these because they're just not great. But the second you get stronger, it completely flips. Why? Because you want to be balanced. So when you have ace queen here with the club, you actually want to just check call because you actually can check call this end. Same with ace jack. You want to check call it. Same with ace 10. It's good enough to check call. Same heuristic as over here. How often do I do these GTO wizard streams? I'm going to try to do them every day before I play. But you see, so one thing to think about when you're playing this small strategy, and you actually are building a checking range, is A, if you have experience versus the opponent, it completely shifts. If my opponent isn't playing B50 here, okay, I'm sorry to cut the studies from, like to maybe ruin it, but let's see. If he plays 150, what do you think is going to happen? A is going to reopen less, and we're going to change our dynamic. We're going to start checking more of these shitty hands. And we're going to bet way more of these strong ones. Oh, ace-jack backdoor flush draw was pure checking. Now it is pure betting. Basically. And it's the other way around. You're checking at 7. Because, it's not that great of a bet. It's not as good as, like, I don't push as much equity. But you got to bet these straight draws way more often. Because these hands aren't in straight check calls. And you got to bet these flush draws more often. But, and then, yeah. 8's still checking good amounts, but... yeah, still betting ace high and stuff because you obviously want to still have an honest betting line. You can't just have absolute dog shit, but yeah. Funny enough, you see that more often. But ace 4 backdoor flush draw went from pure betting. A5 backdoor A5 was checking sometimes, but yeah. The idea is like some of these weaker check calls now they have to adapt to the size they would be facing. It was mainly that ace queen ace jack 10 region. And ace-jack flush draw actually checks more. And then the last hand we're going to look at is this. Okay, we see ace-high bets. We understand this ace-high heuristic, so we'll get rid of the ace-highs. Now we understand clubs, right? And the last thing we want to understand is no backdoor flush draw, no made hand. This is your give-up range right here. The only hands that do bet are some of these suited connectors. The key markers, we already talked, we don't really want an 8. I think an 8's a pretty bad card. It's 10-7, Jack-7, but you're not 10-8. It's the 8 slightly blocks folds, more folds. Why can't I draw? Your opponent just has more of this 8x than he does 7x. He defends 8x. These hands are all pure folds. These hands aren't. T doesn't have them. So for that reason, you just don't bet your trash with an 8. Obviously, this is just theory bullshit. But the idea is this is your main give-up range. You can just pure check this and check fold this and play pretty accurately. So... it's mainly 10-7, Jack-7, 7-6, the connected hands, because they just turn more open-enders than any of their hand. So, like 6-5 can turn a 4 or a 7. 5-4 obviously can turn 2 cards for an open-ender. Or like 2 cards. Like, there's more cards with the connected ones. This is where the connected hands are better. But, yeah. The 7-5 can't really turn an open-ender. But 6-5 and 7-6. So these hands are slightly better. Yeah. And that's the spot. Now let's range build it for fun. Let's see how accurate we can do. We have to get the spot. Why can't I apply? Alright. Spellman. Alright. Okay, so we'll range build it. Obviously, I just looked at the spot chat, so you guys might know more than me. Alright, I remember Kings of betting like 90%. It was like the only one betting like that much. Oh my god. I could look at the combos, but we're gonna just simplify this. 57, 57, that was a lot of hands. Aces, I'm just gonna do the same logic. I'm just gonna simplify here. 57, same here. And King Queen, I believe is gonna bet a little bit more. We're gonna go to 70 here with King Queen. Maybe we'll go to 75, 73. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna slightly lower it for the hearts kicker. Alright, whatever. Is this too boring? Do I just play, guys? I want to do the tier list, but this tier list just doesn't seem like it's gonna be good enough. Like, I gotta find a way to get the images. Yo, I'm cooking up the highlights. Yeah, I seen them. I fuck with it, bro. I hope the video's good. The clips are honestly all peak. This shit better blow up. I hope so. I feel like it's not that type of content people like watching, but I find it fun. If you're a struggling 50-0 shit reg, what would you do to become a 200-0 crusher in a year? You can pretty much do a lot of things. There's a lot of... The most important thing is work. I think poker is hard, but it's simple. Yeah, it's way too boring. Yeah, people have wanted to see it in the past, but I think it's just not the vibe today. I think we might get to playing in a sec here. I wanted to do the tier list, but I just think it's not gonna work. Yeah, but the issue, Frog, is it's all images, bro. Like, look. Leo, it doesn't even need to be that hard, bro. 15 to 20 hours of studying. It can. But the key is there's other things that factor, David, so. But in general, yeah. When you're evaluating a hand, you want to think like exploitatively, in my opinion, you want to think like, can this hand, this is like the worst, this is the best hand that can't check call. So it's probably a better hand to bet than like a tier above it that can check call. Usually might be better slightly because it'll just have a drastically hard checking EV. We'll take a bit though. Okay, guys. The issue is I low-key need help with the regs names. I low-key. So like I just don't think it's today. I low-key need help. I need someone from Ontario here to fucking help. I needed a fucking 200 L reg from Ontario to help. I was hoping we'd have more of them in here, but yeah, I seen, but I don't really like the vibe of it. I like this vibe more. That's the issue. So I think I'm just gonna figure out how to get this. We can look at a spot. So easy one would be to run this. And then run like a board like this. No, this is too... Not, yeah, 984 is fine. I think this is big better check, though. Am I still on range builder? Okay. Like, even in this it'll apply, but it applies less in these big bet boards, but still it applies. Because the issue just doesn't work with the small C bet frequency. Though these boards are entertaining. You guys want to know an insane dark tech exploit that you could just run in your pool and it will just like print out of its ass? So if you go check and this is at the turn. You just range do this. Look what your opponent has to call down. They gotta call ace queen. Like obviously they don't have ace king. They just usually don't have enough hands. And then people will like low key. I mean you could argue people might station these, but it just prints out of its ass. Especially if people are stabby. Like I don't know. This line just like if you get like any river, you actually like check a lot on the 9, but your opponent has to bluff catch ace high. I find most people just don't do that. You have to actually bluff catch king high here to call enough ace jack. So yeah. What's a board but just bet more often? This one's too often. It's hard to find a spot. We need like a 50% betting frequency spot, and I'm trying to think of one, but I don't know. And that's what, yeah. I mean, the delay lines just being crazy is like obviously always printing. Oh, this is a classic. The all in. You don't like the king of clubs though, it seems. Harper is bouncing all three because when you play jams here. You don't jam any flush draws, I think, right? Yeah, none. I think you jam to get low-key kind of called by flush draws sometimes. Because you're ahead of the shit. King Queen runs into it. Higher the 1-1 soft flop, higher the 1 right? Yeah, true. Unless you're me. Ow. Yeah, I just don't think this works today. Like ideally I would like go like I would just like maybe I just like type in a text and have an image, but like I can't even think of the regs off the top of my head. It's been a sec. Like what we got ladybugs chat. We got ladybugs. We got what's the guy's name? Like Poro Wolf. We got Rake Boss. I forget a lot of them. So anyway, I think we'll play. Is 45 a good one once off flop? That's usually traditionally pretty low. That's pretty really low actually. Depends. If you play low stakes, like I think like if you're going multi-way, then obviously. So that's why it should be a little bit below 50. I think theoretically, assuming equal play, like both players would be slightly wider, but yeah, I think if you play low stakes, aiming for above 50 probably makes sense. But obviously, it is what it is. But you're probably leaving some on the table. But anyways, guys, I think I'll end stream and